Part 32. Rebirth of Fantasy, Obtain the Sect System. Author, Red General. Chapter 311. When everyone on the ferry boat saw this scene, a smile appeared on their faces. It feels so good not having to do it myself. Su Minjiao looked at the Suan Haiman disciples running around nearby, smiled coldly, and her figure instantly appeared in the sky. The sword in his hand made a sharp sound, and the sound was like a string, vibrating thousands of miles away. The originally blue and white sky was suddenly covered with dark clouds and thunder and lightning. But at this moment, a rude shout came from Haichuanman, "Who dares to offend our Haichuanman?" When Su Minjiao heard the sound, she looked over and saw an 8-foot-tall man with a rough appearance and a strong build stepping out. The aura on his body was like that of a fierce tiger, exuding a frightening aura. Every time he took a step, the ground would tremble, as if the earth was shaking. Su Minjiao put away her contemptuous eyes and realized that the person's strength had reached Saint Realm late stage. Although this strength did not exceed hers, she was still qualified to fight against her. But, it's just confrontation. On the immortal boat, Fang Gu looked at this person, his eyes flashed, and he seemed to know who this person was. This person's appearance is very similar to that of Mongshan. If nothing else, this person should be his son. Fang Gu's guess was indeed correct. This strong man was indeed Man Por's son, named Man Nu. He saw Man Nu's tiger-like eyes staring at Su Minjiao. He felt a sense of oppression on Su Minjiao's body, knowing that this person's strength far exceeded his own, and he was not a being that he could compete with. He couldn't help but let out a breath. He was now the sect leader of the entire Haichuan section. When he encountered someone stronger than himself, he tried not to fight against him. Because the surrounding forces have begun to notice this scene, if they fight with Su Minjiao, it will be exactly what they want. Thinking of this, Man Nu clasped his fists at Su Minjiao and said, "Your Excellency, I wonder if our Haichuan sect has offended you in any way? If so, I am willing to use a large amount of cultivation resources to make amends to you. Is that okay?" Hearing this, Su Minjiao said nothing, and the stars in her beautiful eyes turned very bright. The next moment, a shadow suddenly appeared behind Su Minjiao. Shuiying looked down at Man Nu with a pair of emotionless eyes, as if looking down at an ant. As soon as the words fell, Qin Feng's figure instantly appeared between the two of them. At this critical moment, his strength had declined, and it had dropped to a great level, so he was no longer a match for Su Minjiao. Hearing this, Manan angrily nodded, and quickly called a few elders, asking them to gather all the disciples in the square. Seeing Qin Feng's figure, and he was just an ant in the immortal king realm, Mongshan couldn't help but frowned, wondering how an insect dared to come here. At the end of the sentence, Mongshan actually started laughing, and his voice gradually started to tremble. "I believe that I will definitely be very surprised when the time comes." A huge roar broke through the opening heaven, and all the dark clouds began to slowly condense into a vortex. In the blink of an eye, there was a clicking sound in the vortex. "You go first and take all the disciples from the Li sect to evacuate this place. This person's strength is almost the same as your father and me." At this critical moment, Man Nu quickly crushed something. Mongshan looked at the scene in the sky with a dignified expression. He looked sideways at Man Nu beside him and ordered. Then, Su Minjiao raised the jade sword in her hand, and her blood-red robe swayed, revealing her slender jade legs. Mongshan, who was on the opposite side, saw this situation and knew that he could not wait any longer. His expression condensed, and a black long knife appeared in his hand. It was not so much a black long knife as it was a magic knife, because the aura revealed on this knife is all dark, not much different from a magic knife. Looking at Qin Fengjiao's gentle smile, Mongshan's eyes showed a hint of shock, and he said incredulously, "His destruction domain hasn't been used yet. After all, he has to wait for an opportunity and wait until the time is right to use it." Not waiting for him to say anything, It seemed like something was broken. Mongshan was horrified when he saw the decline in his own strength. Seeing this scene, Man Nu swallowed his saliva, his expression changed, and he knew that the move Su Minjiao unleashed was enough to destroy him. Qin Feng, who was on the side, saw this scene and understood Fang Gu's mood. He came over and patted him on the shoulder to reassure him. In just a few breaths, the sword in Su Minjiao's hand became heavier and heavier, and the aura it exuded became more and more terrifying, as if this sword could split the sky, shake the void, and destroy everything in the world. This person is quite poor. There was a vibration in the sky. Su Minjiao gathered all the immortal energy around her and poured it into the vortex. Then she held the jade sword tightly and poured all her magic power into it. When Qin Feng, who was on the other side, saw this scene, he curled his lips and showed a smile. Let you see despair. You actually have the power of the domain? This is simply impossible. How can the power of the domain be possessed by an ant like you? Qin Feng, who was in mid-air, stepped with his left foot, and with a bang, the realm of destruction was activated. Mongshan's face instantly showed a look of shock, and his strength began to slowly decline, reaching the peak of Saint Realm. The old men nodded in panic when they heard this. Boom boom boom. However, Mongshan also believed that with his peak strength as an ancient saint, he would not necessarily lose to Su Minjiao, because he had already reached the peak and was about to become an immortal emperor-level figure. What's going on? Boom. Normally, Man Nu would have appreciated it, or even ridiculed it, but now he only felt the pressure. How could he have the intention to appreciate it? His life was almost gone. When Fang Gu, who was on the ferry boat, saw this person, his eyes instantly showed a strong murderous intention. He wanted to kill this person personally, but he couldn't beat him with his own strength, and he felt helpless. Once I compete with her moves, I won't even be able to control the aura that comes out of her. Seeing this, Man Nu took a breath, looked at the majestic scene in the sky, clenched his fists, and looked a little unwilling. He was still too weak. In an instant, the void trembled, and surging space power spread all around. Amidst the dancing of a strong wind, a figure of an unpredictable old man wearing a white robe appeared here. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 312. But Qin Feng just smiled at him and disappeared without looking back, leaving the rest to Su Minjiao. Su Minjiao, who was standing in the air, saw this scene. Although her face remained unchanged, her heart was shocked. I really didn't expect that Qin Feng would have the power of a domain, and it was also a domain that could reduce the strength of others. I couldn't help but start to pay more attention to Profound Heaven Sect again. But now is not the time to think about this. Su Minjiao's beautiful eyes looked at Mongshan. Seeing Manchu, who was on the verge of going crazy, Su Minjiao showed a hint of contempt and sneer, and chuckled. You are so unlucky to have met someone with a domain. Perhaps death is your final destination. After saying this, the sword in Su Minjiao's hand suddenly emitted a ray of bright light, which shone across the sky, causing those watching to cover their eyes with their hands. The next moment, a terrifying sound was heard coming from the sword in Su Minjiao's hand. A sky-like sword intent rushed straight towards Mongshan. The sound was extremely loud and resounded throughout the world, causing the earth to begin to tremble. It caused the void to shatter, and the terrifying power of law continued to flow. Mongshan has become demented, and his old body has become rickety. His eyes are fixed on the attacking moves, and there is no trace of emotion on his face. Because he knew that he could no longer run away, the area was completely controlled by Su Minjiao's laws, and now he was like a trapped beast. Boom! In everyone's horrified eyes. The swords collided, and the mighty Haichuanmen was shattered. The mountains with a radius of thousands of miles began to break, and the boulders rolled down. Countless Haichuanman disciples were turned into powder. The deafening sound resounded throughout the world. Because of this move, the entire land began to drop 10 meters and turned into a cave. When the powerful people nearby saw this scene, a trace of fear flashed in their eyes, but they were still very happy in their hearts. Because Haichuanman has disappeared, it means that the place previously controlled by Haichuanman will belong to them. But unfortunately, what they don't know is that the Shadow Palace will take over everything. If they dare to rob it, death will be waiting for them, but it will be more troublesome. On the ferry boat, Fang Gu saw this scene, and a smile appeared on his originally cold face. The figure of a beautiful woman appeared in his heart again. She was the person he loved most, but unfortunately she had left him forever. However, Fang Gu was very unwilling, especially after hearing that Qin Xian had something that could bring people back to life. He became obsessed with resurrecting her. He believed that as long as her body was found, she would come back to life. Unfortunately, what Fang Gu didn't know was that the person he loved had already disappeared from this world. If he knew all this, he might be very disappointed. High in the sky, Su Minjiao was wearing red clothes. Her peerless and elegant face was so cold, her beautiful eyes were scanning the surroundings, as if she was warning. Seeing this scene, the strong men hiding in the dark all retreated knowingly and did not dare to provoke this person. Especially after knowing that there is someone with domain power behind this person, I don't dare to do it even more. Finding that the nearby aura had dissipated, Su Minjiao returned to the ferry boat. The first time Han Chuang saw her, he immediately walked over. Hearing this, the strong man did not refute, nodded, and said. Han Chuang glanced at her but said nothing. This is also a side that outsiders never know. The world outside only knows that the Daoist clan's temple is the most powerful force in the human race, and it is the force that protects them from the demon race. Hearing this, the noble man smiled and said, "That's right. Fly the immortal domain." Ming Yu's strength has also been accumulated over 2 lives. Brother Han, don't forget, your strength in the first 2 lives was much stronger than that of Minjiao and me. The reputation of the human temple is very good. Of course, among them, there will naturally be people promoting it. You go to the immortal domain and help Soul Demon capture the remaining forces. After that, I will come quickly. I saw a large holy character on their robes, which all represented their status as human temples. Obey my master. Su Minjiao was stunned by these words, and she didn't understand what they meant, but she still came over, took Han Chuang's arm, and said softly. Of course it is possible. After all, this person is not from a powerful person, and he has also given birth to a domain. This is enough to show how talented he is. Hearing this, Shadow Demon nodded respectfully and replied. Qin Feng stood aside, looked at the 2 of them, smiled, and said nothing. Instead, he turned to look at the Shadow Demon beside him and ordered. Because people in the Earth Immortal realm here will only be used as slaves by the middle and lower classes of the human temple. The man is thin, but his noble temperament cannot be hidden. It's nothing. What I didn't expect is that you are already so strong. You can already catch up with me in my previous life. Holy state. And there are 3 major forces under the human race temple patrolling for them. It can also be said that this was created by the human race temple to do some invisible things. The 3 major forces are heaven, earth, and man. The other person's face was withered and yellow, his fingers were all covered with rough calluses, and the aura exuding from his body was as fierce as a tiger. What do you think about dragging this person into our human temple? The strength of the 3 sect masters has reached the level of immortal emperor. The noble man looked at the scene below, thought for a moment, then looked to the strong man aside and asked. As Su Minjiao looked at Han Chuang's figure, it gradually returned to its original appearance, and the terrifying aura on his body disappeared in an instant. This group of people is really extraordinary, and that young man also possesses the power of domain power. With such a talent, I think I should report it to the Lord Protector. As if aware of Han Chuang's gaze, Su Minjiao walked over, tilted her head and looked at him, showing that gentle smile. Han Chuang glanced at Su Minjiao with a complicated expression. He was hesitant to speak. To be honest, he was still a little worried about Su Minjiao, but he was embarrassed to say it out. "Brother Han, what's wrong with you? Why do you look a little strange?" Then the figure disappeared from the place. If trained properly, we can fight demon race on our own in the future, and we can also interact with him, so that the forces behind us can all benefit greatly from him. This is the place controlled by the human temple. There are strong men from the human temple wandering around the entire holy state. Without the strength of the celestial immortal realm, there is no way to talk here. Afterwards, the two figures disappeared here, as if they had never appeared before. What Qin Feng didn't know was that not far away, on a towering mountain peak, two Daoist figures appeared here, staring at this scene. Hearing this, Han Chuang shook his head, waved his hands and said, "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Rebirth of Fantasy, Obtain the Sect System. Author, Red General. Chapter 313. Moreover, the three gates themselves are in charge of tens of thousands of strong monks. Here, there are countless strong men from the golden immortal realm and above. There are many profound immortal realms and immortal king realms. Only the immortal sovereign realm only has about a few hundred people, and the immortal venerable and saint realm have even fewer. The human temple is a palace complex located in the center of the holy state. It is surrounded by 4 giant peaks in the sky and protected by a powerful magic circle. Even if 10 powerful immortal emperors besieged him, they would not be able to break through in a short time. Here, monsters that are rare in the outside world are controlled by a group of big shots, and they are used as their own exclusive mounts. I saw a palace hidden in the clouds. It was paved with countless jade, gold, and stones, and there were rare treasures everywhere. Anyone thrown out will cause outside monks to be ecstatic, and even lead to fierce fights over it. But it seems so normal here, and no one would take a second look because of this. Because this is the deliberation hall of the human temple, and it is also the place where all powerful people from the human temple announce major events. Suddenly, 2 monsters riding golden dragon pythons came here. These 2 people were the 2 people who wanted to recruit Qin Feng before. There were 2 soldiers wearing golden armor standing outside the review hall. Although they were soldiers, their own strength was not weak and they had reached the immortal sovereign level. The 2 of them did not dare to be presumptuous and bowed their hands to the 2 soldiers. Seeing this, the latter opened the door of the review hall, and then the 2 of them walked in. The space in the deliberation hall is very vast. At a glance, there is no end in sight, as if the entire void has invaded here. Every time they took a step, a green light would appear from under their feet, which looked very mysterious. I saw the 2 of them arriving inside with ease and walking towards the golden door on the side. This is just the periphery of the deliberation hall. The periphery is where the great guardian elders of the deliberation hall live. The 2 came to the golden gate, but did not go in because there was a magic circle in front of them, and they knew what it was. I saw a look of respect on the face of the originally noble man and strong man, and he raised his hands to the golden door and shouted, "Your disciple Su Ming, Yun Qi, has something to report to the Dharma Protector." After a long time, the magic circle disappeared and the golden door opened automatically. Seeing this scene, the 2 of them looked happy and quickly walked in cautiously. Inside the palace, an old man wearing a purple cloud robe and 2 braids was sitting cross-legged. His eyes were closed tightly, as if he was practicing. The 2 did not dare to disturb, but stood aside respectfully until the old man opened his eyes, looked at the 2 and said lightly, "Why are you reporting back?" Hearing this, Su Ming quickly replied, Defender Chi. While Tiankai and I were traveling outside, we discovered a young man with the power of the domain. The old man frowned, but his expression didn't show any surprise or joy, because he didn't think what the two said was true. If you can meet people with domain strength wherever you travel, then the temple of other human beings has already reached the pinnacle of the 10 domains. Are you sure you can see clearly? The two nodded. I saw clearly that Lord Protector is indeed a young man with your power of prediction, and his domain power can make others drop to a great level. Seeing that the old man still didn't believe it, Su Ming quickly took out the image stone from his space. Then, all the images of the shadow stone were reflected in the old man's mind, and his unmoved face finally showed a hint of movement. He stood up suddenly, looked at the two of them, and shouted. Then have you investigated the identity of this person? Or is he the son of a big shot? Otherwise, even if he has the power of the domain, we won't be able to take him under his wing. Hearing this, Su Ming nodded and replied. Reporting to the Lord Protector, we have found out that his identity is a peak master of Profound Heaven section. He's not the son of a big shot. Profound Heaven sect? The old man raised his eyebrows, as if he had heard of this power somewhere. After thinking about it carefully, the old man suddenly widened his eyes, looked at the two of them and asked. Is this Profound Heaven sect the same Profound Heaven sect that killed the demon race and the great demon general before, and also defeated the blood dragon and fled? Yes, it is this force. Seeing this, the old man paced back and forth with his hands behind his back, frowning, as if he was thinking about something. When the two saw this scene, they looked at each other. Although they were a little puzzled, they did not bother them and just stood aside respectfully. After a long time, the old man looked at the two of them and said. I thought about it for a moment and realized that robbery is absolutely undesirable and may even make this person unhappy. If we want to win him into the human temple, we have to show sincerity, so I will accompany you personally this time. Then, the old man looked at the two of them and ordered. You lead the way. Hearing this, the two nodded quickly. Half an hour later, the sky was over the tomb of ghosts. A huge golden-winged eagle appeared here, and there were 3 deist figures standing there on its back. These 3 people are Su Ming, Yun Qi, and the protectors of the human race temple. Looking at the Profound Heaven sect wrapped in clouds, the old man's cloudy eyes glowed with light and he praised. This sect's formation is pretty good. Although it can't compare to our human temple, it can compare to the formation of the 7 Kills temple. Su Ming on the side heard the old man's words of praise and glanced at Yun Qi on the side. Yun Qi shrugged, not understanding why the old man was praising him. Then the old man did not stop here, and controlled the golden-winged eagle to approach the territory of Profound Heaven sect. At the same time, in the main hall of Profound Heaven sect. Feeling the unfamiliar aura coming from outside the formation, Qin Xian, who was sitting on the throne, frowned. With a wave of his hand, an image appeared in front of him. Looking at the 3 figures sitting on the golden-winged eagle, Qin Xian half squinted his eyes and looked slightly condensed. These 3 people are all very powerful. Especially the old man, whose strength has reached at least the 5th layer of the immortal sovereign realm. As for the other 2, their strength is not bad, reaching around the profound immortal 7th layer. Although their strength did not pose a threat to Qin Xian recognized the robes they were wearing. Why do people from the human temple come to my Profound Heaven sect? Is it possible that they want to recruit me, Profound Heaven sect, to work for other people's temples? Qin Xian was thinking a lot, but he couldn't think of any answer. Immediately, his figure disappeared into the hall and appeared outside the Profound Heaven sect. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 314. Outside World. Seeing Qin Xian's sudden appearance, Su Ming and Yun Qi's eyes flashed with vigilance, and they yelled at this person. Who are you, kid? Don't you know our identities? How dare you block our way? Hearing this, Qin Xian just glanced at the two of them coldly, without speaking, but looked directly at the old man standing in the middle. Based on this person's strength, if his guess is correct, he should be the one leading the team. I am Qin Xian, the sect leader of the Profound Heaven section. Why are these three great figures from the human temple coming to my small sect? Hearing this, Su Ming and Yun Qi looked at each other with somewhat surprised expressions. They did not expect that this person turned out to be the sect master of Profound Heaven sect. Despite this, the two still maintained a proud look. After all, their human temple was not comparable to that of a small Profound Heaven sect master. The old man didn't pay attention to the expressions of the two people beside him. He looked at Qin Xian with a smile and cupped his hands. No matter what you do secretly, you still have to be polite on the surface. My name is Zhang Shan, and I am one of the 12 guardians of the human race temple. I come here this time to discuss something with you. Oh. Qin Xian raised his eyebrows, although he didn't understand what he wanted to discuss with him. But as a protector of the human race temple, this person still tried his best not to offend. After all, Qin Xian had no interest relationship with him. Moreover, he is not yet qualified to challenge the human temple. Within the clan, on a mountain that towers into the clouds, Qin Xian came here with 3 people. The environment here is beautiful, with peach trees planted everywhere. Blowing by the breeze, the peach tree made a rustling sound, its body began to sway slowly, and large strands of peach blossoms scattered around the world. When Zhang Shan and the other 3 saw such a beautiful scene, a trace of surprise and confusion flashed through their hearts. After all, under normal circumstances, once you embark on the path of cultivation, you rarely have time to appreciate the beautiful scenery in the world. Because they all spent a lot of their time practicing. The 10 domains are very complicated. If you don't practice others for one day, then others' cultivation will catch up. This also results in the fact that no one wants to let others down, and everyone wants to have a higher level of cultivation than others. Having said that, such a beautiful scene also gradually relaxed the minds of the 3 of them. Zhang Shan couldn't help stroking his hair and beard, looked at Qin Xian and joked. Sect leader Qin is so elegant. He still has time to plant peach trees all over the mountain. You know, once people start practicing cultivation, they almost never stop, and few people pay attention to such beautiful scenery. Qin Xian smiled when he heard this. This was just something he did when he had nothing to do. Although I have become a monk, I still prefer the beauty of the world. Being obsessed with cultivation will only make myself feel irritable. If you stop to appreciate these peach blossoms during your cultivation, wouldn't Senior Zhang feel beautiful? Hearing this, Zhang Shan nodded slightly and said nothing more. Qin Xian's words did make sense. But the reality is that no one does it. Afterwards, several people came to a pavilion. Qin Xian poured the tea for several people and took a sip before looking at Zhang Shan and asking. I wonder what Senior Zhang wants to discuss with me. Hearing this, Zhang Shan did not say anything, but glanced at Su Ming who was standing aside. Seeing this, Su Ming nodded and understood the meaning, then turned to look at Qin Xian and said. Sect Master Qin, I wonder if your sect has a man named Qin Feng. Qin Xian's eyes narrowed and his expression moved slightly, as if he guessed something, but he still hid it and nodded. Indeed, he is the peak master of Profound Heaven sect. But as a protector, in order to show his magnanimity, he would naturally give Qin Xian some resources. When the clone improves its cultivation, the main body will naturally improve accordingly. Correspondingly, when the main body improves its cultivation, the clone will also improve. If they give Qin Feng cultivation resources, it is equivalent to giving Qin Xian cultivation resources. I'm here today to take you back to the human temple to receive guidance from the top experts. Looking at the thing in front of him, Qin Xian's eyes lit up, but he still hid it well. and I also made a lot of money this time. If Qin Feng wasn't his clone, Qin Xian would have to think carefully. Unfortunately not. Since someone wants to help him cultivate his own clone, Qin Xian is naturally willing, nodding and saying, "Not long ago, I watched Qin Feng of your sect use the power of the domain, and with the help of a strong man, he wiped out Mongshan, the ancestor of Haichuanmen. It just so happened that he was still short of resources. Since they wanted to give it away, Qin Xian would naturally accept it without hesitation." Before Qin Xian could introduce himself, Zhang Shan stood up impatiently and said. Seeing Qin Xian agreeing so quickly, Zhang Shan couldn't help but show a hint of surprise. "Since your sect is willing to leave Qin Feng to us for training, we will also have treasures as compensation. I believe that your sect can also know that our human temple is the sacred land of the human race. We feel that a genius with the power of a domain should stay in a better place to be well cultivated." Zhang Shan had a trace of doubt in his heart. Seeing this, Zhang Shan on the opposite side opened his mouth to explain. "These rank 8 treasures and rank 7 treasures in front of you will be given to you, Sect Master Qin. Logically speaking, shouldn't we fight for it?" Thinking of this, Qin Xian immediately called Qin Feng back, who was thousands of miles away. But after thinking about it, he didn't ask any more. After all, he only needed to take Qin Feng to the human temple, and he didn't bother to take care of the rest. Hearing this, Qin Xian smiled and put them all away. "I wonder why you ask this. Sect Master, don't you know who these are?" After all, the human race temple did not know that Qin Feng was his clone. After burning the incense, Qin Feng's figure appeared in front of several people and raised his hand to Qin Xian. Or is this Qin Xian really doing it for the righteousness of the human race? Seeing this, Su Ming stopped beating around the bush and said directly. "So the higher-ups issued an order to ask Qin Feng of your noble sect to leave here and go to the human race temple. There, we will give him the best resources to quickly cultivate his strength. You know, the clone and the main body are one." Then he saw the figures of Zhang Shan and the others, pretending to be confused, and said. Speaking of this, Qin Xian also showed a hint of heartache. "I am the protector of the human race temple, named Zhang Shan, and the two beside me are disciples of the human race temple." Zhang Shan moved his palm, and one after another top treasures appeared in front of Qin Xian. "Nourish. How is this different from robbing a disciple? Okay, after all, I, Profound Heaven Sect, am also a righteous force, and I can't stand demon race's arrogant trek. For the future glory of the human race, I am willing to hand over my sect peak master." Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 315. What? In order to perform the trick well, Qin Feng deliberately showed a look of shock and looked at Qin Xian beside him in disbelief. "Sect Master, is this true?" Upon hearing this, Qin Xian showed a trace of apology to him and nodded. "It's true. I, the Profound Heaven Sect, cannot cultivate a genius with domain power like you, so after careful consideration, I still think it would be more appropriate to send you to the human temple. Because only there you can receive better guidance and resources." Zhang Shan on the side heard Qin Xian's words, nodded with satisfaction, and praised, "Knowledge. Otherwise, if Qin Feng knew that he came to take him away on his own initiative, it may make others feel unhappy, and the subsequent relationship will be very bad. But now Qin Xian himself explains that this situation will not happen. Seeing that you are so knowledgeable, I will give you a chance to enter the human temple in the future." Zhang Shan looked at the scene and said secretly. When Qin Feng heard Qin Xian's words, his eyes were a little vacant and he clenched his fists. The look of reluctance was perfectly expressed. Qin Xian pretended not to dare to look at him and looked away. Seeing this scene, Qin Feng said nothing and stood there blankly, his sharp nails already piercing into the palm of his hand. Zhongshan on the side smiled when he saw this scene, and then looked Qin Feng up and down with his eyes. His expression was very satisfied. Because Qin Feng's current strength has reached the Immortal King level, he couldn't help but feel a little emotional in his heart. As expected of a genius with domain power, he then asked softly, "Little brother, I wonder if you can release the power of your domain and show me." After hearing this, Qin Feng came back to his senses and nodded. With a bang, the destruction domain was launched, and the strength of Zhongshan and the other three people instantly dropped to a great level. Seeing this situation, Zhongshan's eyes moved, and he suddenly felt a sense of crisis. Because he suddenly discovered that Qin Feng in front of him was already stronger than him. He couldn't help but swallowed, took a breath, looked at Qin Feng and nodded kindly. Okay, take it back." Upon hearing this, Qin Feng smiled secretly and took it back. If it weren't for the fact that the man in front of him was the protector of the human race temple, he would have taken action directly. Su Ming and Kai Ming, who were next to Zhongshan, had just felt a strong sense of fatality. It seems that the next moment, they will be dead and in a different place. Fortunately, Qin Feng is one of his own and will not kill them. But what the two of them don't know is that they have already passed through the gate of hell. Afterwards, Zhongshan said something more to Qin Xian, and then left with Qin Feng and others. Looking at the retreating figures of several people, a hint of coldness suddenly appeared on Qin Xian's originally smiling face. He himself did not expect that an unintentional elimination of forces would actually attract the arrival of powerful men from the human race temple. But this time I got a bit of luck. Qin Feng goes to the human temple, so he can stay in the sect and do nothing. Just wait for Qin Feng to use resources to break through. When Qin Feng's strength reaches a certain stage, it will be the time when he will dominate the Profound Heaven sect. Having said that, because of Qin Feng's departure, Immortal Domain lacks some strength. So Qin Xian had to send others there. Cultivation must be improved, but the matter of annexing forces must also be left behind. Afterwards, Qin Xian thought for a while and sent two of the more powerful members of the sect to seal the Immortal Domain. Seal Immortal Domain, Qiun State. A majestic ancient house covering an area of 10,000 acres stands here. There are countless strong men flying in the sky with swords, and some people are passing by on monsters. This is the ancestral home of the Wu family, an immortal force. Immortal power is naturally a family with the pinnacle of ancient saints. The eternal force is a family with the immortal emperor level. At this time, in the meeting hall of the Wu clan that covers an area of more than 100 square meters, three figures sit cross-legged here. One person was wearing a gorgeous robe, with a majestic face, and a pair of sharp eyes that seemed to be able to pierce the hearts of others. This person is the current head of the Wu family, Wu Yan. The men on both sides are named Wu Yuan and Wu Zi respectively. But now, the expressions of the three people are not good looking, and there is a trace of sadness on their faces, as if they have encountered some trouble. What do you think of the Soul Palace's invasion of our clan's forces? Wu Yan stared at Wu Yuan and Wu Zi with a pair of sharp eyes, and his tone was inquiring. After hearing this, the two looked at each other, pondered for a moment, then cupped their hands and replied. Clan Chief, you have also seen that the Soul Palace sends people to invade the business we are in charge of and the forces we govern every time. If we really want to have an opinion, we can't say it and there's nothing we can do about it. The only way is to find the hiding place of the Soul Palace and eliminate them from the source. Hearing this, Wu Yan did not speak and sighed, as if he had already guessed what the two of them would say. This Soul Palace has caused great harm to the Wu clan, and many businesses and forces in the clan have been invaded by it. But they didn't kill anyone, they just destroyed them, which seemed to be provoking the Wu people. This situation lasted for nearly a month, because a large number of transportation channels were destroyed, and now the entire Wu clan has suffered a financial crisis. There are no more immortal crystals in the treasury that can be issued. The resources that could be distributed in the past were all saved by the Wu clan elders and elders who were frugal and frugal. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to survive now. But resources are now exhausted. Nowadays, the entire Wu clan's children are complaining endlessly, sighing and complaining about the lack of resources all day long. Because they have no training resources, their strength has almost reached a bottleneck and they have been unable to break through. But they were smart enough not to come here to question, because everyone knew why it was like this. They have never blamed their own family. What they blame is the damn Soul Palace. If it weren't for it, the Wu clan would never be like this. In addition to the reason of resources, other things happened to the Wu clan. That's where we are now. Because the entire business resources were lost, the status of the Wu family, which was originally one of the three major families, dropped significantly. Now it can only rely on Wu Yan's own strong strength for support. Shock those young people who have thoughts about the family. The entire Wu clan has hundreds of thousands of family members. Now that they have no training resources, almost a large part of them have chosen to go out to practice. Find your own opportunities. Someone was lucky enough to find an opportunity and get the valuable immortal weapon, or elixir. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 316. But of course there are also people who are unlucky and encounter some desperados and powerful monsters. In just half a month, thousands of clan members died tragically outside. In fact, according to the rules of the Wu clan, the family will not let the clan members go out to practice before they have reached the celestial immortal realm. But there is nothing we can do about this situation now. The clan rules have to be broken. Wu Yan was helpless for those clan members who died. Now he had no choice but to watch helplessly. Wu Yan clenched his fist and suddenly hit the table hard. With a bang, the tabletop instantly shattered under the tremendous force. The two of them were also shocked by this scene, but they did not dare to say anything. Is it true that our Wu clan is going to be like this by a soul palace? Is there really no way to do it? Wu Yan looked ferocious, stood up suddenly, and let out a roaring sound. The entire meeting hall was slowly shaken by the sound, and it seemed that it would collapse in the next moment. Seeing this scene, the two of them looked at each other with a hint of helplessness in their hearts. They had no choice but to do so. This soul palace really annoyed them. Although the strength of the two has reached immortal venerable, it does not mean that the two have the vast ability of divine ability and can directly find the main hall of the Soul Palace. Because whenever they catch people from the Soul Palace, those people from the Soul Palace will choose to commit suicide without hesitation. Everyone in the Wu clan couldn't find a single clue. In fact, everyone in the Wu clan was a little surprised when Hundian chose to commit suicide without hesitation. After all, in the 10 domains where everyone is selfish, there are very few people who dedicate their lives to preserve their power. Wu Yan exhaled, his brows relaxed, and he tried his best to suppress his anger. Wei Wei thought for a while, looked at the two of them and asked, "Have you ever offended this force? Otherwise, why doesn't this force do other things? Just keep an eye on our clan." Upon hearing this, the two men quickly shook their heads and replied, "Clan leader, I have asked the clan members, and no one has offended this force at all. If it was really offended, we would have sent people to destroy it long ago. There is no way it can survive today." This, Wu Yan sighed again. If he lives like this, he can only watch his family fall into destruction step by step. When the time comes, other forces will surely be unable to resist annexing them. After all, now, the other two families are a little bit ready to make a move. I believe they are definitely waiting for the opportunity. In addition to these two major families, there are also some forces in the immortal sovereign realm that are also interested in the Wu clan. Speaking of which, this is so ridiculous. The reason is not that the Wu clan is useless, but that the demonic shadow art practiced in the Soul Palace is too abnormal. After all, this technique would be extremely difficult to detect even by a strong person at the pinnacle of Saint Realm. It is completely a special skill for Lao Lu. The two of them looked at Wu Yan's dejected look, feeling very aggrieved but a little helpless. Unless there was a war, they had never seen Wu Yan showing such a helpless expression. Just when the two of them wanted to open their mouths to comfort them, a black shadow quietly came to the three of them. Seeing this scene, Wu Yuan and Wu Ziyi reacted instantly, looking at the black shadow with a vigilant expression. The power of a terrifying law is already condensed in his hand. Who the hell, get out. Then I want to ask you what you want to do here? Is it just to provoke me? Do you just want to humiliate us? Just like the man in black robe just now, his expression was indifferent, there was no emotion in his eyes, he really looked like a puppet. The flames crawled into the body of the man in black robe along Wu Yan's arm. In the next moment, the man in black robe was burning with blazing fire. Wu Yan looked at this scene, his eyes lit up, and he seemed to have guessed that the person in front of him was the real person. The shadow just now was his clone, just to test Wu Yan's tone. Of course, it can also be said to be a provocation. But it's a pity that the black shadow didn't care, and the scene remained in a stalemate. The black shadow seemed to have received some news and emerged from the ground. The violent aura crushed the nearby spaces together, and the entire meeting hall began to tremble, as if it would collapse in the next moment. But the man in black robe always looked at him expressionlessly, like a puppet, seemingly not afraid that Wu Yan would kill him. He knew that even if he killed all the men in black robes in front of him, it would have no effect. He looked at these black figures and said solemnly. Seeing that the man in black robe didn't make a sound, Wu Yan's eyes narrowed slightly. This was the first time he saw such a tough-talking person. Seeing this, the three of them looked at each other, a trace of doubt flashing in their eyes before they could say anything. Just when he was about to take action, the purple-robed figure in front of him instantly turned into several black shadows. Clan Chief Wu, there is no need to be so aggressive in attacking me. A dark shadow in front of Wu Yan shook his head, of course not. I came here to discuss something with you on the order of the Lord of the Palace. The next moment, a dark flame suddenly appeared on Wu Yan's palm. Wu Yan did not let the flame stop. He threw the black-robed man to the ground and watched him burn to ashes. And he is still so unafraid of death. Hearing this, Wu Yan clenched his palms, snorted coldly, took back his breath, looked at these figures coldly and said. Then, he waved to Wu Yuan and Wu Ziyi, saying not to act rashly. Hundreds more black shadows appeared in the meeting hall. Seeing this situation, Wu Yan looked helpless, as if he had punched cotton. But what surprised the three of them was that the man in black robe did not make a single cry from the beginning to the end, and seemed to have no pain. Then they emerged from the ground in unison. What's the matter with you coming to our Wu clan? Wearing a black robe, with a big word Soul engraved on his chest, if nothing else, he is a member of the Soul Palace. Such a strange scene made the three of them somewhat unpredictable. At this time, Wu Yan also noticed the black shadow on the ground, with a hint of murderous intent in his eyes, and shouted angrily. Seeing this, Wu Yan frowned, and without hesitation, he pinched the black shadow's neck with his hands and lifted him up. Sure enough, it's you annoying building ants who have the guts to tell me your location. See if I don't, I will tear you into pieces and smash your bones into ashes. But he naturally had the means, and Wu Yan snorted coldly. Because it's useless. My clones are endless. Unless your strength reaches the immortal emperor, no matter how strong you are or how vast your divine ability is, you can't hurt me at all. Do you need me to invite you out? This scene made Wu Yan a little unpredictable, and he didn't know who to attack. A laugh came from nearby, and the next moment, all the black shadows turned into a purple-robed figure. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 317. If you agree, we will not only return all those forces to you, but we will also make your family even stronger until it becomes the most powerful force in the entire Kaiming state. Oh! Wu Yan raised his eyebrows. He would not believe these words, but he still pretended to be confused and asked, "What's the matter?" The purple-robed figure seemed to know that Wu Yan didn't believe it, but he didn't explain it because Wu Yan himself would believe it soon. "I believe Patriarch Wu knows about the Song and Ma tribes, right?" Wu Yan's eyes moved and he nodded. "We have investigated it and found that these two families have always had unforgivable connections with your Wu family, and they even often fought over it." Hearing this, Wu Yan nodded. His Wu clan did have a feud with these two families, but that was all thousands of years ago. "Yes, my Wu clan does have some connections with these two clans, but what does this have to do with what you said you want to discuss?" The purple-robed figure smiled. "This is what we discussed. As long as you, Chief Wu, can cooperate with our Soul Palace to destroy these two major forces, our Soul Palace will return all those things to you and push you to become the #1 force in Qiyun province. Clan leader Wu, don't be too busy refusing. This matter will be helpful to you and me. You can say that you are guaranteed to make money without losing money." Hearing this, Wu Yan felt a little moved in his heart, but also a little hesitant. He didn't know whether what the man in front of him said was true. In case this guy has already made an agreement with the Ma clan and Song clan, give me false news and ask him to send people to fight with these two tribes. In fact, it was these three major forces that jointly attacked the Wu clan. If this is really the case, then the Wu clan will face the disaster of annihilation. Thinking of this, Wu Yan felt a little wary in his heart. But Wu Ziyi and Wu Yuan beside him didn't think so. Can they refuse to agree to such a sure profit without losing money? They hurriedly persuaded. "Clan leader, I think this is feasible." "Yes, clan leader, you can agree to this. It just so happens that I don't like the brats from the two families." Wu Yan glanced at them and didn't reply. He couldn't get carried away for the immediate benefit. As the leader of a family, he must consider the survival of the family. Survival is the first priority, and interests are second. If the family can't survive, there's no need to talk about benefits. If the three major forces jointly deceived him, then his family might be destroyed, not to mention annexing it. Wu Yan didn't want to be the sinner of the family. Looking at the dark shadow in front of him, he refused without hesitation. "I will never agree to this matter. Who knows if this is a conspiracy of your three major forces?" Hearing this, all the black shadows instantly merged into a purple-robed man. He raised his eyes and looked at Wu Yan. He didn't show any surprise, as if he had already guessed that this was the case. "Clan Chief Wu, have you thought about it? You know, if you don't agree, then our Soul Palace will increase its power to torture your family. Now, you have no choice. Either agree, or watch your family slowly die. If you agree, there may be a chance to rise. If you don't agree, there will never be a chance. Besides, I, the Soul Palace, have never thought of lying to you. Otherwise we won't simply annex your family's resources, but directly kill your family members." In fact, the soul demons of the three major forces all thought about annexing, but found that they only needed to annex two major forces to complete the task. Therefore, the Wu clan was involved. The strength of the Wu clan is not inferior to the other two major families, and is even much stronger than your other two major families. This is also the reason why the Wu clan is in this situation and other families dare not come to annex it. Soul Demon has investigated and found that the Wu family has a very good family tradition. Taking the 8 characters of filial piety, brotherhood, loyalty, trust, propriety, etiquette, integrity, and shame as the ancestral motto, he never bullies the weak because he is strong. They will even help weak monks in turn. On the contrary, The other two major families were arrogant, domineering and arrogant. Even the soul demon couldn't stand the disgusting scene. Although the soul demon is bloodthirsty, it does not mean that he is inhumane. Everyone summoned by Qin Xian has his own principles. Moreover, the current Soul Palace also needs the help of some forces to help the Wu family rise, which is beneficial to them. After hearing the purple-robed man's coherent words, Wu Yan looked a little angry, stared at the black shadow, gritted his teeth and said, "Are you threatening me?" The purple-robed man shook his head expressionlessly, "This is not threatening you, we are helping your family rise. You must know that this opportunity only comes once. If it weren't for the three major families, only your family has some weight. Otherwise, it would not be me standing in front of you now, but all the strong men in my soul palace standing in front of you." Hearing this, Wu Yan clenched his fists and sighed helplessly. What he said was just to seek an explanation for those disciples who died tragically. Then he looked at the man in purple robe and nodded, "Okay, I promise you." Hearing this, a smile finally appeared on the face of the man in purple robe. He took a deep look at Wu Yan and said, "Don't worry, Patriarch Wu, you won't regret the decision you made today, and you will even be grateful to us in the end." As soon as he finished speaking, the man in purple robe threw something to Wu Yan and disappeared. Seeing the purple-robed man disappearing, Wu Ziyi and Wu Yuan looked at each other in confusion. Then they fell in love with Wu Yan, hesitated for a while, and asked, "Chief, what should we do now?" Wu Yan glanced at the two of them, said nothing, and chose to leave. Seeing this scene, the two of them touched their heads, sighed, and left. And on a peak not far from the Wu clan, dozens of figures with powerful auras appeared here, all wearing purple robes. These people are all the protectors and deputy palace masters of the Soul Palace. And standing on top of everyone is the Soul Demon. After a long time, a purple-robed figure appeared in front of the Soul Demon. He knelt down on one knee, and the Soul Demon with a respectful expression cupped his hands and said, "Reporting to the Palace Master, Wu Yan agreed to this matter." Hearing this, the Soul Demon's eyes moved, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. "Okay, in that case, let's start taking action against those two forces. And to deal with these two forces, we have to trouble you too." The next moment, two Daoist figures appeared out of thin air next to Soul Demon's left hand. It was Bloodthirsty in black robes, and Mo Chen in black robes. "Just leave it to us." Bloodthirsty nodded with an indifferent expression, and then a 100-foot giant dragon appeared out of thin air high in the sky. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 318. The crystal-clear black scales, sharp claws, huge dragon horns, coupled with his majestic body, look very domineering. This is the demon dragon in its infancy. I saw the demon dragon dancing its huge dragon head and roaring loudly. Roar. The roar of the dragon was deafening, resounding throughout the sky, and the power of the dragon emanating from it made all the powerful Soul Palace warriors on the mountain peak feel a little awestruck. Seeing this scene, Xue Xue and Mo Chen jumped up and looked at Demon Dao. "Come up." Hearing this, Soul Demon's eyes lit up and he nodded. Immediately, the three people rode the magic dragon and headed towards the place where the two forces were located. The other deputy guardians and others looked at each other, but without thinking too much, they summoned the monsters and followed them. But the man in purple robe just now did not leave in a hurry, but crushed something. After a cup of tea. In the middle of several giant peaks, a towering giant city is crawling here, like a giant beast, overlooking the crowds coming and going. I saw the three mighty characters Song and Yuan Cheng written on the city gate. This is the most prosperous city in Qiun Prefecture, and it is also the place where the three most powerful families of Wu, Song, and Ma are managed together. Unfortunately, because the Soul Palace often interferes with the Wu clan's business, the Wu clan has now lost its management rights here. There are only some shops here, but they can't earn any useful resources because there are too few forces and they are suppressed by other forces. I believe that these shops will be swallowed up by the other two families before long. Therefore, there are almost only the voices of the two major families in Song and Yuan City, and the Wu family no longer has any say. In the Song and Yuan dynasties, there are endless shouts and shouts in the city, and countless carriages or powerful immortals are flying here with swords. In the center of the city, a huge attic is located here, and there are two strong men of the immortal king realm standing guard at the gate. This is where the three major families have jurisdiction over the city. But now it has become two big families. And now on the third floor of the attic, a middle-aged man and an old man with white hair and beard were chatting and laughing, and they seemed to have encountered something happy. These two people are the current chief elders of the Song and Ma tribes, Song Kaihe and Ma Taifeng. The Song and Ma tribes often marry each other, so the relationship between the two families is very harmonious and they often communicate with each other. Song Kaihe is a white-haired old man. His current cultivation level has reached the immortal venerable 8th layer, although this strength is a bit low in the eyes of the major forces in Qiyun state. But don't forget, he is backed by the Song clan. Even if Song Kaihe is immortal without cultivation, those powerful men at the immortal venerable level still have to treat him with respect. This is the power and intimidation of the Song clan. In contrast, the same is true for the other two major families. Song Kaihe relaxed his brows, took a sip of tea, looked at Ma Taifeng beside him and said in high spirits, "Brother Ma, tell me which force dares to target the Wu clan, and the Wu clan has nothing to do with this force. After so many days, his Wu clan's shops have been annexed by our two clans, and their power has been greatly reduced. Only that guy Wu Yan is holding on. It is said that the dragon is a divine beast. The appearance of the dragon represents auspiciousness. The dragon is a divine beast." But Song Shan he didn't know that this dragon was a magical dragon that was rare to see in 1,000 years. Then his eyes turned to the attic in the center of the city, where he happened to see two people watching the magic dragon at his feet. "I don't know either. Let's see what's going on first. Maybe this giant dragon is just passing by." At this time, Ma Taifeng and Song Shan he also walked out. Seeing the magic dragon in the sky, their eyes showed a trace of solemnity. To be honest, when I see this group of people someday, I will definitely thank them deeply. Without them, the Wu clan would not be what it is today, ha ha ha. Hearing this, Ma Taifeng hesitated for a moment and then expressed his concerns. There was a sudden uproar and noise in the city. Song Shan he frowned and looked at Ma Taifeng beside him and said, but Ma Taifeng shook his head. Even so, after thinking about it, Ma Taifeng was still a little worried. After all, he didn't know whether this force would turn around and attack them. Yes, Ma Taifeng nodded heavily after hearing this, and he felt very comfortable. He had never been so happy before, and this was the first time today. "You said the purpose of this force is to deal with the first force first, and then deal with our remaining two forces." Huh, this is bullshit. Only being strong is the real auspiciousness and the last word. After all, the dragon race in the juvenile stage usually reaches around the immortal king realm, the dragon race in the adult stage reaches at least immortal sovereign, and the dragon race in the prime stage reaches immortal venerable. Roar. Brother Ma, what's wrong with you? Aren't you very happy that the Wu people have been suppressed? Why do you still show concern? Song Shan he's originally smiling face suddenly paused, frowned, and put down his teacup. Why does this dragon appear here? I have never heard of the dragon race being born. Ma Taifeng is right, it is indeed possible. He had no interest in these mortals. We can only guess that the current demon dragon is a dragon race in the growth stage, because the demon dragon is too big. Some mortals only know that the dragon represents auspiciousness, and after saying this, they kneel down and kowtow. He kept talking about a happy family, happiness, and peace, etc. Song Kai-he on the side looked at Ma Taifeng with a worried expression, and couldn't help but feel a little strange, and asked. Bloodthirsty stood on the dragon's head, folded his arms, and looked down at the crowd below with a hint of disdain. High in the sky? While Song Kai-he was thinking, suddenly, a dragon's roar resounded from high in the sky outside. All the bullshit auspiciousness is fake, are you kowtowing to others? Will others save you? The sound pierced the entire void, causing many people in the city to have eardrums tingling and their heads spinning. Hearing this, Song Shan-he nodded, but he still felt a sense of vigilance in his heart. As long as there was anything wrong with the demon dragon, he would run away without hesitation. This is a dragon. Hearing this, Song Kai-he raised his eyebrows and asked, how do you say that? Am I afraid that this force will turn around and attack us? But some people with farsightedness naturally know it. What if we turn around and attack them? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 319. Seeing this scene, his bloodthirsty eyes lit up and he said coldly. Since you like to appreciate it so much, I will show you enough. As soon as he finished speaking, the bloodthirsty right hand moved, and a surging black demonic energy began to surge. Then, they turned into black dragons one after another. Try this trick for you. Bloodthirsty looked at the two people below and said with a ferocious smile. The next moment, several black dragons located around Bloodthirsty rushed towards the two people below. The momentum was extremely terrifying, and from a distance, it seemed as if a sharp sword was about to penetrate the entire city. When everyone in the city saw this scene, their eyes showed fear, their expressions began to panic, and they hurriedly fled around. Only some fanatics were still on their knees. Under the attic, Ma Taifeng and Song Shan-he looked shocked at the upcoming attack. There's someone standing on top of that black dragon? What's going on? And did we mess with him? Why did he attack us? Ma Taifeng looked at the unstoppable black dragons charging towards him and exclaimed, with a look of deep confusion in his eyes. But fortunately, the offensive has just arrived. The two suddenly discovered that this power was very weak, only reaching the level of the immortal king. This power is so weak. Humph, that guy is really bluffing. Seeing several black dragons being easily destroyed by his own magic power, Ma Taifeng, who was originally frightened, showed a trace of disdain on his face. Seeing this scene, Song Shan-he on the side couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. It's okay, he's just a bluffing guy. Thinking of this, Song Shan-he couldn't help but become arrogant. Since others were bluffing, what else was he afraid of? He jumped directly into the air, stood opposite the demon dragon with his hands behind his hands, and made an unpredictable expression. Looking at the three figures standing on top of the magic dragon, Song Shan-he looked arrogant, pointed at them and yelled. Who are you guys? Don't you know my identity? How dare you attack me directly? Song Shan-he snorted coldly, don't think that just because you picked up a dragon race cub somewhere, you dare to act recklessly in front of us. With absolute strength, even if you are a dragon, you still have to lie down for me. When the three bloodthirsty people heard this, they looked at each other and smiled disdainfully. The bloodthirsty just wanted to try out his own moves, and he never thought about fighting with the two of them. After all, the gap in strength between the two is still very large, and cannot be made up by the ancient dragon body. Nowadays, Bloodthirsty and Mo Chen's strength has only reached around the Immortal King level. This was what they had picked out when selecting treasures in the hall before, otherwise their current strength would only be in the profound immortal realm. Looking at the few people standing on the dragon head, not only did they not show fear at his words, but they also showed a trace of disdain. Song Shanhe frowned and thought to himself, is it possible that these guys have some backup plans? But judging from the appearance, there is no hidden formation nearby, there is only this black dragon. Song Shanhe was puzzled until a sharp sword energy rushed towards him. Song Shanhe's heart beat violently at that moment and he quickly hid. Whoosh! The sword energy passed through Song Shanhe's hair and hit a mountain behind, causing a roar. Seeing this, Song Shanhe couldn't help but feel scared. He patted his chest with his hand and let out a breath. If he hadn't had many years of combat experience, he would have really died with this move. Then he looked at the direction where the sword energy was coming. Only 3 figures appeared in front of Song Shanhe's eyes. Looking at the 3 figures, Song Shanhe's pupils shrank and he couldn't help but take half a step back. Because these 3 people are Wu Yan, the leader of the Wu clan, and Wu Yuan and Wu Zi, the elders of the Wu clan. Seeing this situation, Song Shanhe wanted to escape. But the space near him has already been firmly blocked. At this moment, he was like a beast trapped in a cage of anger, unable to do anything but roar. Snort. Wu Yan stepped in front of him, stood with his hands behind his back, stared at him with a pair of tiger and wolf eyes, and showed a trace of disdain at the corner of his mouth. Feeling the strong aura of death, Song Shanhe shuddered and swallowed saliva. The person in front of him was a person who could fight with the head of his family. Song Shanhe wanted to kneel down and beg for mercy, but once he looked at Wu Yan's death-like gaze, he suddenly realized that begging for mercy was of no use. Now Song Shanhe is like a mouse meeting a cat, constantly dodging, but no matter how he dodges, he can't escape Wu Yan's death-like gaze. Ma Taifeng, who was located below, had already escaped from here when Wu Yanggong appeared. Bloodthirsty and others did not pursue them, because all they had to do was ask Ma Taifeng to go back and report the news, and ask the clan leaders of the 2 families to come here so that they could catch them all. Wu Yan did not choose to kill Song Shanhe because he received instructions from the Soul Demon. So he used the power of law to create a cage and locked him in it. Song Shanhe was a little scared at first, thinking that he was going to die, but what he didn't expect was that Wu Yan just locked himself up and did not choose to kill himself. Although he is locked up now, it is still better than death. Song Shanhe thought secretly, but his eyes kept staring at the nearby area, as if he was looking for something. Half an hour later. As everyone expected, Song Yuntao, the patriarch of the Song tribe, and Ma Yan, the patriarch of the Ma tribe, led all the powerful men from the 2 families here. Song Yuntao's face turned pale when he saw that his eldest elder was locked in an iron cage. Isn't this just a slap in the face? He originally looked rough and arrogant, but now when he is angry, he is like a tiger, terrifying and frightening. I saw Lu Yuntao pointing his hand as thick as a bucket to Wu Yan high in the sky and roaring loudly, "Wu Yan, what do you mean? Have we, the Song clan, offended you in any way? You actually treat my elders like this. Do you really think I'm afraid of you?" Hearing this, Wu Yan smiled coldly, crossed his arms, looked down at Song Yuntao, and said coldly, "You have not offended me in any way. I, Wu Yan, am just here to cherish the hatred from 1,000 years ago. Don't you know what happened between my Wu clan and your 2 clans 1,000 years ago? Back then, my ancestor was tortured to death by your 2 clans. It was precisely because of this that my Wu clan was almost on the verge of collapse. If the old grandmother hadn't defended the Wu clan by herself, my Wu clan might have disappeared by then." Hearing this, the 2 clan leaders looked at each other, and they naturally knew about this. But that was all 1,000 years ago, and they almost forgot if Wu Yan didn't mention it. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 320. Seeing the 2 people's unchanging expressions, Wu Yan was too lazy to continue talking nonsense. After all, he had to use his strength to speak. Then a red long knife appeared in Wu Yan's hand, pointed it at the two of them and said in a deep voice, "Stop talking nonsense. Thousands of years of hatred will be repaid today by our Wu clan. Which of you dares to fight me?" Upon hearing this, the two of them looked a little hesitant. After all, they knew Wu Yan's strength. If they fight alone, they can't fight at all. Seeing this scene, Wu Yan's expression revealed a hint of sneer. He didn't expect these two guys to be so cowardly. "Don't hesitate. If you two are afraid, just go together to save wasting time." As soon as the words fell, Wu Yan's body instantly became hot, and red flames hung around him, like fire dragons one after another. At this moment, he was like a red flame hanging in the sky, pressing towards the two of them with an aura that burned the world. Seeing this, the two of them clenched their fists, their faces turned ugly, and they gritted their teeth, determined not to kneel down. Among the two of them, one is a strong person at the peak of the ancient saint realm, while the other is only a strong person at the late stage of the ancient saint realm. The peak ancient sage is naturally Song Yudao. Relying on his own strength at the same level, this pressure will not make him feel suffocated. But Ma Yan beside him couldn't bear it anymore, and he spit out a mouthful of blood due to the pressure of the breath. Cough, cough. Looking at Wu Yan high in the sky, Ma Yan gritted his teeth and said, "Damn it, why is this Wu Yan's aura more powerful than before? Did he get another opportunity recently? Or is he about to become emperor?" Hearing the words becoming emperor, Song Yuntao immediately rejected it, shook his head and said, "How could he become emperor? If he had become emperor, why would he endure it until today? I'm afraid he would have attacked us long ago. His aura is indeed strong, but he is still far from the level of immortal emperor. There is more than just one word difference between emperor and saint." Song Yuntao had seen the power of the immortal emperor back then. He could shatter mountains and rivers and shake the continent with just one move. One breath can directly kill the ancient saint. Afterwards, the two of them didn't say much. They each took out their own immortal weapons and looked at Wu Yan in the sky with vigilance. Seeing the expressions of the two of them, Wu Yan's expression remained unchanged, but he really couldn't help but want to ridicule. "How come you can't even hold my breath? You two may have trained like dogs. You can only tell the truth but not the truth. As expected, they are a useless family that will only use the resources of your ancestors to cultivate. I feel really sad for you." Wu Yan shook his head and couldn't help but taunt, but his eyes seemed to reveal a trace of pity and a hint of ridicule. After hearing Wu Yan's words, the two of them turned pale, snorted coldly, and did not reply. But looking at the compressed void nearby, you can clearly see how angry the two are now. Wu Yan didn't pay attention to this. At this moment, the flames hanging around him gathered together in an instant and formed a fiery red halo. Wu Yan moved his palm, and the halo instantly split into several rays. "It will be filled directly in the sky." Then Wu Yan looked stern and thrust the red flame knife in his hand into the void. In an instant, a tearing sound came from the void. Seeing this scene, the powerful man behind the two people quietly left the place and scattered in the surrounding houses, as if they wanted to carry out a sneak attack. The fiery red halo nearby burned violently in an instant, and all the mortals in the Song and Yuan cities felt the heat all over their bodies. Boom! There were cracks, roars, and collisions one after another, and in the blink of an eye, the area of 1,000 miles was reduced to ruins. The strong men of the two clans were not afraid when they saw this scene. After all, almost everyone present was around the immortal sovereign realm. Wu Yuan and Wu Ziyi naturally noticed it, but they didn't pay attention. Everyone from the two nearby families heard this momentum and rushed over immediately. Hundreds of people died tragically in it, making wailing sounds. But they don't actually need to. But Song Yuntao and Ma Yan didn't think so. However, Xuexiang and others all noticed their actions. Then the two of them immediately fought together without any words. Boom! 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 After all, they are not demon deo, but the righteous forces. Countless mana collided like cannonballs, and the sound was very huge. Within a moment, several strong men in the immortal sovereign realm died in it. Let these monsters fight against the strong men of the two clans on their behalf. The three of them were not the only ones coming. The other strong men of the Wu clan had long been hiding nearby. Because Wu Yuan and Wu Ziyi have been watching the scene closely, they will save these people at a critical moment. In the process of fighting, the Wu clan has been deliberately pulling the battle line farther away, because this can prevent some innocent people from dying tragically. Then I saw strong men from the Wu clan appearing around one after another, as if they wanted to surround and kill them. They are all in the same realm, so why should we be afraid? Why not have a hardy battle to prove who is the strongest person in the same realm? The raging momentum shattered nearby houses, and it didn't stop until half a stick of incense was burned. Moreover, the number of monsters summoned by so many Soul Palace masters has been piling up, like a turbulent wave, sweeping over the people of the two clans. The Soul Demon did not choose to sit idly by and led many Soul Palace experts to summon hell monsters. Seeing this situation, everyone's expressions darkened. Looking at this scene, it really made people feel numb. Boom. 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 The next moment, two immortal sovereign realm experts from the Song tribe flew out and hit an indestructible stone pillar. He quickly hid in a water tank or by the river. Seeing Wu Yan's offensive, the two of them stopped waiting. Their auras shook, and the turbulent air waves instantly pushed the nearby houses back 100 meters. Then I saw a violent bayonet sound and the sound of fighting coming from a house not far away. Although the strength of the hell monster is very low, it can almost be said to be broken by a touch, but it cannot stop his behavior of not fearing death. If you are at war with other families, you will naturally not let some innocent people get hurt. The two spit out a mouthful of blood, and their breath gradually disappeared. The turbulent aura emanating from the crowd was as terrifying as the gods descending from the earth. The two of them turned a blind eye. They had no time to care about the life and death of these mortals. They only cared about whether they would lose this battle.